Yesterday, Jaraji explained that Viriya, Sati and Samadhi, effort, mindfulness and concentration, which are called Samma Vayama, right effort, Samma Sati, right mindfulness, and Samma Samadhi, right concentration. These three make up Samadhi Khanda, concentration group. And when these three combine, they become very strong. And the noting mind will reach the object of meditation when the yogi exerts effort. There will be sustained mindfulness. The noting mind will fall calm and collected on the object continuously. There will be Viriya, Sati, Samadhi continuously without any gaps in between. And when the noting mind falls onto the object, Khanika Samadhi, momentary concentration, will develop. And this Khanika Samadhi, momentary concentration, is supported by Viriya and Sati, effort and mindfulness. Each moment of Khanika Samadhi, momentary concentration, may not seem strong, but when there is continuous Khanika Samadhi, momentary concentration, when momentary concentration becomes continuous, without any gap, this Khanika Samadhi will become amazingly strong. And such kind of Khanika Samadhi, a strong momentary concentration, can keep the mind calm and collected on the object, just as Lokiya Apana Samadhi, just as mundane kind of attainment concentration can do so. So Khanika Samadhi, momentary concentration, has the same quality with Lokiya Apana Samadhi, mundane kind of attainment concentration, in keeping the mind calm and collected on the object of meditation. And this will happen when the mind is not overwhelmed by defilement or the sense object, and thus the mind is controlled, tranquilized for a longer period of time. And Samadhi, momentary concentration, will not be overwhelmed by opposite mental states such as nivarana, hindrances, and defilement. Instead, this Khanika Samadhi, momentary concentration, will gain upper hand on these defilements and hindrances. When the yogi notes continuously on the presently arising object without any gaps in between, even though the objects may vary, but the Khanika Samadhi, momentary concentration, can keep the mind calm and collected in the same way, even though the object may differ. So even though there are various objects to be noted, the Khanika Samadhi, momentary concentration that is developed, will be homogeneous, and it seems they are as if one. And when Khanika Samadhi, momentary concentration, develops continuously like a stream of current without any gaps in between, the mind will not be overwhelmed by kilesa defilement or the hindrances, and thus the mind is not agitated, it will be calm, tranquil, concentrated, and unified. At this stage, the jhanic factors of vitakka and vichara, initial application and sustained application, have become quite strong. And when Samadhi Khanda, concentration group, becomes stronger and gains momentum, yogi experiences joy, satisfaction, happiness, and one-pointedness of mind. Saraji gives an example of a child who plays marble. A child who starts to play marble will miss the target even though the player aims the marble towards the target. By lack of practice, the player misses to hit the target, but as the player practices day by day by aiming the marble towards the target and putting effort, the player becomes more skillful day by day. And when the player plays marble, when the marble hits the target, the player feels happy, joyous, and the player's mind becomes calm and joyous. When the player becomes skilled in playing marble, the player can hit the target every time she throws the marble, and the player feels joy, happiness, satisfaction, and the person even wants to jump when the first player hits the target. So this example of playing marble can be compared with the practice of Satipatthana meditation. When the yogi is able to observe the two factors of vitakka and vichara, initial application and sustained application, the noting mind will be aimed towards the object, and the noting mind will rub onto the object. The noting will be effective, and Samadhi Khanda, concentration group, will become stronger and stronger. When this happens, yogi feels happy to practice. Yogi gains happiness in the practice of Satipatthana meditation, and the yogi can note these objects with ease and comfort. There is only one thing to be done for the yogi. Yogi has only one thing to do, that is to note the presently arising object continuously without missing, without failing. In order to note the presently arising object effectively, one needs to aim the noting mind towards the object and put effort. When the yogi can note the object effectively with aiming and effort, Sati, mindfulness, will be developed, and Samadhi, concentration, will also develop. And yogi will become skillful automatically by noting the presently arising object continuously with aim and effort, and thus yogi will come to know distinctly between mind and matter and cause and effect, and later on yogi sees that nama-rupa phenomena which are arising as cause and effect, they arise and pass away. In this way, yogi sees the characteristics of impermanent, suffering, and non-self. So by noting the presently arising object with aim and effort, knowledge will arise automatically in the yogi. So what is most important for the yogi to do is to note the presently arising object continuously, effectively. The objects that are arising, they arise and pass away in a complete flood. So that's why yogis need to exert ardent effort in order to keep pace with the fast arising object. If the yogi is not alert or active, yogi cannot cope with fast arising objects. So if the yogi cannot cope in noting the presently arising object, yogi will not know the object, and thus there will be delusion on the object that the yogi misses or fails to note. The objects that are arising in the body, they are dukkha satta, truth of suffering. In order to know these objects which are truth of suffering, in order to know them distinctly, one needs to note the object as soon as the object arises, so that one's noting will be effective. In order that the noting mind should reach the object of meditation, yogis should apply aiming and effort so that the noting mind will stick onto the object and the mind will fall calm and collected on the object. Yogis should not be sluggish or slow to note the object. Whatever object that arises, yogis should note it right away as soon as the object arises. In order to do so, yogis should have strong will to practice the Dhamma. Yogis should understand that practicing Satipatthana meditation is something that is very precious. Satipatthana practice can bring benefits such as purification of the mind. There are 7 benefits. And these benefits are essential for every human being. Knowing that Satipatthana practice is essential for every human being, the person will develop faith and confidence on the Satipatthana practice. The person should have confidence on himself, herself, as well as the method of practice, and also yogi should count on the meditation teacher. In this way, yogis should have faith and confidence on oneself as well as the method and also the meditation teacher. When the yogi has strong saddha, faith and confidence, there will also be strong will to practice the Satipatthana meditation and to gain the benefit of Satipatthana practice. Only then yogi can practice courageously to note the presently arising object every single second. When the yogi is courageous, she will go further to practice Satipatthana meditation. And Sayadaw says only courageous yogis can pursue the practice of Satipatthana meditation. But people who are cowards, they cannot carry on with their practice. They withdraw from the practice. So it shows that they are cowardly. But a diligent yogi notes the object continuously every single second, and it is the duty of the yogi. There is one and only duty of the yogi, that is to note the presently arising object without failing, without missing. Yogis should note the object continuously every single second, and they should not be thinking other things, but they should only note the object that is arising at the present moment. There is a Western saying, practice makes perfect. So a person has to practice so that she will accomplish and succeed. So it is according to the saying that the yogis should be noting every single second continuously, and yogis noting should be continuous, just like the. And after the retreat, Sayadaw was on his way to another center, and on the way, Sayadaw and group stopped in a restaurant. And in the restaurant, when Sayadaw looked around, there was a game, and in Korean language it is called dudoji. And the game is about groundhog or mole, which is a rodent family. And then these groundhogs or mole, they live in a pit or the hole in the ground. And these creatures, they seldom come out of the hole. Only when they know they are safe, they come out to search for food. And this game has many holes with these groundhogs inside. And when the player pushes the button, the groundhogs come out of the hole one by one or two at a time. And the player has to strike the groundhog as soon as the creature comes out of its hole. And if the player cannot strike the groundhog as soon as the hog comes out, then the player does not get the score. So when Sayadaw sees this game, Sayadaw remember that it is just like practicing Satipatthana meditation. In the game, the player has to strike the groundhog, as soon as the creature comes out of the hole. And in the practice, yogi has to note the object as soon as the object arises. So the game is very similar to practicing Satipatthana meditation. And Sayadaw got some portable game to show a sample to the yogis. So in the game, the player has to strike the groundhog over and over again as soon as the creature comes out of the hole. And if the player fails to strike the creature makes fun of the player. And if the player can strike the creature as soon as the creature comes out of the hole, then the creature will yell, "I give up, I give up." So the player has to be very alert to strike the creature as soon as the groundhog comes out. If the player is not alert or ready, the player misses to strike the hog and the groundhog goes into the hole again. So in the same way, yogis should be noting the presently arising object as soon as the object arises, and the meditator will get score by noting the object as soon as the object arises. And when the yogi notes continuously on these objects as soon as the object arises, yogi awakens his or her saddha, faith and confidence, and the yogi discerns distinctly between mind and matter. And a yogi also cultivates the awakened saddha by Satipatthana practice. When the yogi gains knowledge, his or her faith and confidence will become stronger and stronger. And the yogi's awakened saddha should be cultivated by practice. And when the yogi attains Ariya Magga Jnana, path knowledge, his or her saddha, faith and confidence will be unshakable. Nothing can ruin or destroy the person's faith and confidence once the person has attained path knowledge. So Satipatthana practice is not like the blind faith If someone is having faith just by hearsay, just by hearing from other people, his or her faith will be called Paṇḍitā, blind faith. But practicing Satipatthana meditation does not involve blind faith, but one has to practice in order to cultivate the awakened Saddha. So just like in the Korean game Dudoji, one has to note the presently arising object as soon as the object arises. In order that the noting should be effective, one should apply mental strength in the noting. There should be aiming, directing, focusing the noting mind towards the object. Understanding that Satipatthana practice is very precious and it should be practiced by everyone. One should have faith and confidence on the practice, and when one comes to practice, one should note effectively on the object of meditation. Yogis are asked to note rising and falling of the abdomen as primary object. Focus of attention should be on the abdomen. And in order to note rising of the abdomen, yogis should be alert, active, and ready to note the object. As soon as the rising of the abdomen arises, the mind should be aimed, focused onto the rising of the object. This aiming, focusing is called vitakka. And as the yogi notes again and again, over and over again, practicing, yogi will become skillful in aiming, focusing the noting mind towards the object. The noting mind and the object will be concurrent, and the noting mind will be direct or face to face with the object of meditation. So this vitakka has the quality of aiming, focusing, directing the noting mind towards the object of meditation. When the noting mind is concurrent with the object, it means that the mind is straightly on the object. It is not, the mind does not go crookedly to the object, but the mind goes straight to the object of meditation. Knowing that Satipatthana practice is something that should be done, yogis should be noting diligently, effectively on the object of meditation. When the noting mind is concurrent with the object, there will also be vichara, sustained application onto the object. The noting mind will rub onto the object, and there will be no gap in between. The noting mind will strike onto the object, hit onto the object in momentum when the mind is aimed towards the object. When the mind strikes on the stiffness, then the yogi will know stiffness. When the noting mind strikes on tension, yogi will come to know tension. And when the noting mind strikes on movement, yogi will come to know movement. So in this way, when the noting mind is concurrent, when the noting mind strikes onto the object, yogi comes to know any of the characteristic of Vayo Dhatu, wind element, air element, which are stiffness, tension, movement, and so on. When the mind strikes onto the object, and when the noting mind rubs onto the object, one will be certain of the object, knowing the characteristics of stiffness, tension, warmth, movement, and so on, and there will be no uncertainty or doubt. When the noting mind hits the object of meditation, the noting is effective and there will be benefit. When the noting mind is direct or face-to-face with the object, it means that the noting mind straightly goes to the object. It does not go crookedly, but the noting mind goes straight onto the object, and thus the mind becomes fresh and alert. When the mind is fresh, being able to apply vitakka, one can overcome tinamita, sloth, and torpor. When the noting mind is sustained on the object, when the noting mind rubs onto the object, there will be certainty. One will overcome uncertainty and doubt. And these are the benefits. These benefits are not small. One may think of it as ordinary, but actually these benefits, overcoming tinamita, sloth and torpor, and uncertainty and doubt, such benefit is great. So one can overcome opposite mental states when the yogi's noting is effective. And in order that the noting should be effective, one should aim the noting mind towards the object and put effort so that the noting mind will reach the object of meditation. When the yogi can note the object continuously for 1 minute, there will be the mind will one can overcome these defilements, and to be able to do so, one should exert effort so that the noting mind is pushed towards the object. Applying effort, the mind is pushed towards the object, and having effort present, this effort does not accept defilement from arising. Viriya, effort, repels kilesa, defilement, and this Viriya effort blocks the path of unwholesomeness, and this is the benefit. Not accepting kilesa defilement, repelling these defilements, and closing the path of unwholesomeness when effort is present. So having these mental factors, vitakka, vichara and viriya, yogi scores in his or her practice, and yogi becomes successful in practice. Just like when playing the Korean game of Dudoji, when the player can strike the target, which are the groundhogs in the hole, coming out of the hole. In the same way, when the yogi can note the presently arising object, yogi gains score. So, in school, students should score higher marks, and when the student scores higher marks, the student gets straight A's. In the same way, if the yogi wants to have straight A's in his or her practice, yogi should be noting the presently arising object continuously every single second. And when one attains one's goal, one feels joyous, happy. So when the player gets score, the player feels happy, And when the player gets many scores, the player feels joyous, happy, satisfied, and so on. In the same way, when the yogi can note the object effectively, yogi feels happy and joyous. At times, yogi can feel good flesh in his or her body. It is Paṇḍitā piti, minor joy. And there will be happiness, peace, and also one-pointedness of mind. As the yogi practices further, yogi feels this minor joy again and again. And when his or her practice is very good, that yogi does not miss to note any object, then there can be Upekkha piti. So it is like the kind of thrill when looking at the wave on a seashore. One looks at the wave with thrill, whether the wave will come to the person. In the same way, in the practice, yogi also feels thrill, joy and thrill. What will happen next? So there will be joy, happiness, peacefulness, and one-pointedness of mind. And when such mental states arise, there will be jhana. These jhanic factors of piti, joy, sukha, happiness, and ekaggata, one-pointedness of mind. When the yogi gains Vipassana jnana, insight knowledge, by discerning the characteristics of impermanent suffering and non-self, there will be jhana, having 5 jhana factors of vitakka, vichara, piti, sukha, ekaggata, initial application, sustained application, joy, happiness, and one-pointedness of mind. And by attaining Vipassana jnana, one gains Vipassana jhana, having these 5 jhanic factors.
အဲဒီလိုအခြေအနေစိုက်ဖို့ဆိုတာကစောစောကပြောခဲ့တဲ့အတိုင်းပေါ်ခြင်းရှုခွက်အာယုံကိုချိန်သားတဲ့ဆရာဆိုင်ပြီးတော့ဆွဲမြဲပေါ့လေအလေးမြတ်ထားပြီးတော့ကြိုးစားအားထုတ်တဲ့ယောဂီမှာရနိုင်ပါတယ်။မှတ်တဲ့ခါလဲမှတ်လိုက်နားတဲ့ခါလဲနားလိုက်အားတဲ့ခါလဲအားလိုက်စဉ်းစားတဲ့ခါလဲစဉ်းစားလိုက်ပေါ့လေခပ်ပေါ်ပေါ်ဆဆလုပ်တဲ့ယောဂီအတွက်တော့ဘုန်းကြီးတို့အမှမခံပါဘူးလေးလေးနဲ့ဒီအလုပ်ရဲ့အကျိုးညာလို့ပြီးတော့တံပိုးထားတဲ့ဥပြောတဲ့တိုင်မှတ်တဲ့ယောဂီတော့ဘုန်းကြီးတို့အမှရဲ့အနေငယ်တွင်းကိုပဲတရားအခြေကောင်းအနေကောင်းလေးတွေဖြစ်လာနေပါလေအမှခံပါလေဒီတော့အလုပ်လုပ်တဲ့အခါမျိုးမှာပေါ်ပေါ်ဆဆမဖြစ်စေဘဲနဲ့တကယ်လေးလေးနဲ့အလုံးနဲ့တူအောင်ကြိုးစားနိုင်ကြပါစေလို့လေးလေးနဲ့တိုက်တွန်းရင်းနဲ့ဒီနေ့တရားဆုံးသတ်လိုက်ပါ
In order to reach this stage, yogis should be noting diligently, with aim and effort, with sustained mindfulness, on these objects of meditation as soon as the object arises. But if the yogi is practicing, observing intermittently, practicing stopping in between, resting. So if yogi practices in stop and go manner, resting, stopping, gazing, and practicing again, in this way, Jaraji does not give guarantee to